Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I know I was off last week, but we're back here and we're heading toward the end of March. And always the end of March means celebration of Cesar Chavez, the late Cesar Chavez, the farm workers, heroic leader who led us into the great boycotts that was so important in the 60s and led the Mexican American movement in our country. Well, there was another individual who also led a huge movement in America, and that was the great late Dr. Hector Garcia out of Corpus Christi, Texas. He started the American GI Forum in 1948. And how many of you out there have heard of the American GI Forum in Saginaw County? We hear about that all the time. And tonight's show is going to be based on the American GI Forum and their upcoming luncheon for Cesar Chavez. And tonight, my guest is going to be Sir Gilberto Guevara, as well as the commander of the Saginaw chapter here of the American GI Forum, Michael Guzman. So please join me in the room. If you've got a comment or a question, please put it in the chat room. We'll try to make it part of the show because Mi Gente on Air is your show. It's about our people here in the Great Lakes Bay region. So please join me here tonight on the Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Good evening, Mi Gente. How are you tonight? Thank you, everybody, for joining me here on Mi Gente on Air as we celebrate spring. Although it's a rainy day today, we're here in the Alpha Media Studios in the midst of rain and wind. But tonight is a very important show because, as I mentioned earlier on the live stream, we're celebrating Cesar Chavez, Cesar E. Chavez, the farm worker who led the labor movement way back in the 60s. And every end of March, the American GI Forum chapter of Saginaw celebrates with a big luncheon for Cesar E. Chavez. And so tonight we're going to talk about the American GI Forum. And, every Latino, I think, in the Saginaw County has probably heard of the American GI Forum because they are very important in regards to educational attainment for our youth because they provide scholarships for many of our youth for so many years. And tonight I have the commander-in-chief of the Saginaw chapter. His name is Miguel Guzman, as well as Sir Gilberto Guevara, a longtime community activist in our community. So please help me welcome Mr. Guevara and Mr. Guzman. Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing fine, Larry. Thank you for having us.
Well, thanks for being here tonight in this important show about the American GI Forum. How many times have you heard about the American GI Forum? I'm throwing this question out to my listeners because it's always associated with educational scholarships. And it's so important because they really have raised a lot of money through the years, and they have given it back to our youth, to those who are seeking higher education. So I want Sir Gilberto Guevara and Miguel Guzman, tell us a little bit about who you are and your background and why you joined the American GI Forum.
I guess I'll go first, Larry. First of all, I'm a native of Saginaw. I come from a family of 11. Both my parents migrated to the United States from Mexico. My father worked for General Motors for 40 years. My mom was just a housewife, but still she maintained 11 children while we were growing up here in Saginaw. I was educated here at the Saginaw Public School System, went to Delta College and Saginaw Valley State University. The reason I became a member of the American GI Forum is because I was drafted in the United States Army during the Vietnam War. They didn't call it a war. They call it a conflict. They call it a police action. But nevertheless, I was drafted. And after basic training and advanced infantry training, I was sent to Vietnam, served 1 year in Vietnam. And I was very fortunate to not get injured. But I'm not sure if I received any other health issues while I was there, because as you know, there was a lot of spraying of chemicals in the air. and we moved from the Central Highlands to the northern part of Vietnam. We weren't very far from the DMZ, and but anyways, I came back, and I happened to be at St. Joseph Church when a group of men were talking about the movement of the Latino movement. They called themselves SLAM, the Saginaw Latino. It was the Saginaw Latino American movement, and when I was listening to these gentlemen, I thought, wait a minute, these guys don't know what they're talking about. They're older gentlemen, and I just fresh out of Vietnam, fresh young man, uh, married, one child, and I thought, wait a minute, we got to do something here. And of course, became familiar with the American GI Forum, so I decided to join. And that was back in 1971, and I've been a member ever since. I'll let Mike go ahead and do his.
Yeah, but first, before we let Mike go ahead, I'm going to say something. You said that your mother was just a housewife. I knew your mother, and she was more than just a housewife. Pachita Guevara, the late Pachita Guevara, a brilliant woman in her own right and everything that she did in the community.
Yeah.
So I just want to get that in. Mike?
Yes, I was migrated up here from Texas when I was 5 years old, and I still remember the first house we moved into back then, and it was on Norman and 6th Street. After that, I grew up in Saginaw. I attended Sacred Heart School, and eventually went over to 10th grade over at Saginaw High. Finished school, then ended up and got drafted, and I'm a Vietnam era veteran, and I served most of my time at Fort Knox. When I got out of the military, I ended up working at Steering Gear at the time, this Delphi, which they filed bankruptcy. Now they're next year. And after that, I was approached by Tony Stricker and Gilbert and John Lopez. They asked me to join the GI Forum, and that was like in 2005. I turned around and, I was involved in a lot of different things like softball, American Softball League, bowling leagues, and UAW representative, and other things. So I really didn't want to, but they kept on nagging me. So I decided to join. I'm kind of glad I did now, because it's all about education, trying to help our kids get educated. Like the motto is, education is our freedom, and freedom should be everybody's business. And I go with that. So thank you.
Well, the thing is here from 2005, and here you are the commander of the American GI Forum Saginaw chapter. Now, Gil, you have been the commander in the state of Michigan, right? Correct?
That's correct. That's correct. I was commander for the state of Michigan for 3 years. I had the opportunity as the state commander with the other commanders from the United States to go to a conference. It was a congressional gala ball, and all the GI Forum commanders of the states were at that ball. And I had an opportunity to listen at that time, and we're talking about back in the mid 80s. I had a chance to listen to, at that time, Senator Joe Biden, and then I also had an opportunity to listen to Hillary Clinton. And somehow the commanders that were there from different states managed to corral her, and they said, "Can you take a picture with us?" So there was probably about 10 of us, and we were in this back room because, as you know, we're not supposed to be in any way affiliated with a party. We're not supposed to do that. So we did meet Hillary Clinton in the back room, and we took a picture with Hillary Clinton. I still have that picture at home. And as we were standing in line, the first person she came up to shake hands was me. And I told my wife about it, and I says, I don't know if I should wash my hand or not, because this is Hillary Clinton, who's been very active in the United States along with her husband. So that was a good experience for me, being the state commander. I was local commander, and I've held every office at the local level.
Well, I want to make sure that my audience understands about the American GI Forum. It's a civic organization. The organization was established in Corpus Christi, Texas, by the late Dr. Hector Garcia on March 26, 1948. And it was to address the concerns of Mexican American veterans who were segregated from other veteran groups. And this truly happened. My father was a good example. He was drafted into the Korean War, and the stories that he told me, I could not believe on how they segregated some of the Mexican American soldiers at the time. And initially, it was formed as a request service for World War II veterans of Mexican descent who were denied medical services by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. Can you believe that? The American GI Forum soon entered into non-veteran issues through the years, such as voting rights, jury selection, and educational desegregation, advocating for the civil rights of all Mexican Americans. And in 1959, the organization claimed 25,000 members in 18 states. And I believe in 1966, it was when the Saginaw chapter began. And I want Gil to tell us a little bit about that history.
Yeah, well, let me kind of back up a little bit, Larry, before I talk about Saginaw. It was Felix Longoria, who was from Texas. When he was killed in the Philippines, his body was brought back to Three Rivers, Texas. His wife and a comadre went to this funeral parlor to get some funeral services done for Felix Longoria at that time. And the funeral director told them, "We do not bury Mexicans." And of course, they felt very bad because here's a man who fought for our country, died for our country, and all of a sudden is being refused to be buried in his home state. So they went to Dr. Garcia, who was at that time already a retired major in the United States Army. He was a medical doctor. And so they forward their plight to what had happened. So Garcia, having the kind of fire that he had, he went to the funeral parlor. Again, he was refused. And then he went to different parts of the state of Texas, and he met and he was very familiar with a gentleman by the name of Lyndon Baines Johnson, who eventually became the president of the United States. They knew each other. So Lyndon Baines Johnson said, let me take care of that for you. He did much work for the Longoria family, and eventually Felix Longoria was buried at Arlington Cemetery in Washington, D.C., with all the honors that's given to a veteran who is killed in action. And Dr. Garcia, because he had so much energy and he was so knowledgeable, he traveled throughout the state of Texas forming GI Forum chapters. And after he did that, when he came to Michigan in 1956 and formed a chapter in Michigan, which is Detroit. Mm-hmm. And then after Detroit, 2 years later, the American GI Forum was formed in 1958 here in Saginaw. The American GI Forum is 66 years old here in Saginaw. So we've been around. We've done a number of different things. But I think you're right, Larry, when you talk about the education aspect of the American GI Forum, the money that we raise for scholarships. I'll just give you some brief statistics if I can. First of all, since 2006 up to 2023, we gave out 158 scholarships to Latino students in Saginaw County. We averaged in those years, we averaged about $3,000 a year, and we come up to about $54,000 from 2006 to 2023. So we're active. And Mike mentioned our motto, because education is our business. That's what we take care of, and that's what we do here in Saginaw. And we're proud of what we do. You get those naysayers out there, but that's okay. We're out here and we're doing what we can do for students. And let me tell you, we get top quality students. We get students with GPAs better than the 3.5. In those years, we had two gentlemen that were valedictorians. And that's a great thing to have when you got Latino students that are valedictorians. That's the best in your class, and you're talking about a 4 or better. And that's what these two gentlemen were at their high schools. I'm going to let Mike speak a little bit as well.
Well, before you go ahead, Mike, I just want to mention about the Longoria affair. There's a PBS document that was about 10 years ago. I can't remember who the director was. Do you remember offhand?
Yes, John Valdez.
Yes, John Valdez. It is very good. Look it up on YouTube, because it is very good and tells the history of Felix Longoria and how he was denied burial services in Texas, and how Dr. Hector Garcia came to the aid with the help of Lyndon B. Johnson. All right, go ahead, Mike.
Yes, and we were also congressionally um, chartered through the U.S. Congress. I don't know the date on that, Gil. But it was I think it was during the Johnson years. But yes, and other than that, our women's club, we have a women's chapters too. They also help with the scholarship and the Cesar Chavez luncheon. They do an awesome job. They're there when you need them, and we couldn't do without them.
Well, I have to mention we're talking about American GI Forum here in the history in Saginaw, and I know that like with the Unión Cívica Mexicana, it was a men's group that first started almost 80 years ago, and they left the women out. Did you guys do that as well with the GI Forum? Because it was the women that said, hey, if you don't let us in the organization, then we're not cooking for you. So I don't know if that happened, but I know the GI Forum, under the direction of Ali Zuniga, the late Ali Zuniga, was so instrumental so many years ago with starting the GI Forum. Not in the beginning, but I think later, her and Tomas, her husband, were really instrumental to bring the American GI forward to the forefront in Saginaw County.
As you talk about the ladies, when the GI Forum was formed here in Saginaw in '58, the ladies were involved, and eventually they got the title as auxiliary. And to the ladies, the only thing the auxiliary meant to them was that when they had functions and dances, the ladies would do all the cooking. And so that was their role as an auxiliary. And they weren't given the kind of recognition that they have now, because now they are a 501c3. They are a chapter in itself. But since we're together, we do things as two chapters together. So it's, instead of Saginaw, we have Saginaw women and men. So, and we're both, like I said, we're both chartered, and we work together constantly, because we know that by working together hand in hand, we can only make this better and more we can make more money, so to speak. And we just have that kind of talent. And we have ladies that have a lot of talent, and a lot of them that are educated as well.
Yes. And now, Jonathan, do you have any of the pictures of the American GI Farm? Because it's important that, to me, I'm a historian. I always want to talk about the history. And this picture here, we have Ali Zuniga as well as Tom Zuniga and Bobby Kennedy. This shows how important the American GI Forum has been in the United States history. And there's some other Hispanics that are from Saginaw in that picture as well. But the late Ali Zuniga, the late Ida Rocha, I'm sorry. Beautiful picture of them there. This is at an event probably 20 years ago with the American GI Forum, but they were really instrumental as well. Now, tell us a little bit about this, Gil, this picture here, because you received a proclamation from the city of Saginaw last year, was it? Or a couple of years back?
Yeah, well, we received one this year as well. And the reason and the purpose for that is when we go to the city, we want city government, we want the citizens of the city of Saginaw to know that we are veterans. We're a family, youth, and veterans organization. And we want the city of Saginaw, we want the mayor, we want the council people to know who we are. And then more so, we want them to know about Cesar Chavez. And and it's ironic that, Cesar Chavez had a birthday on March 31st, because I was going to say on March 31st, that was back in 1927. On March 26, 1948 is when the American GI Forum was founded.
And well, that's why we celebrate so much during the month of March, right?
And not only that, our articles of incorporation with the American GI Forum was also March 31st, 1958. So it's ironic that we all have that same close date, but more so the month. And like I said, it's important for government, city government, county government to know that the American GI Forum has been in Saginaw County for 66 years. And the only way we can do that is go before council, go before county government, and say, this is who we are, and this is how long we've been in this community. And we do service veterans. We don't turn down veterans. We service veterans, we service families, and more so, we service youth as well.
And one of the important roles that you guys have played for so many years, and many people have benefited from the service for veterans. When somebody passes, a veteran passes away, the American GI Forum is out there, and they do the gun salute rifles, and just that homage to the individual. And they never turn really anybody down. They work with the U.S. Government in terms of the military service, and it's just very comforting for the families that are receiving that tribute, or the individual. So, Mike, can you tell us just a little bit before we go into commercial about how a student can actually apply for a scholarship, and what's the procedure for that? Because I know that's up and coming, right?
Yes. When we finish up with the Caesar Chavez luncheon, we're going to find out how much money we have to distribute to the students. But we also go out to the schools and talk to the counselors and have them turn around and give them an application and forward to their students to try to get them to put in for scholarships. Last year, unfortunately, we only had was it 6 students that applied. But this year we're going to try to get out there more and push them, try to push them, and that's why we're trying to do this program. Thank you for having us here, because this is a way to get out, let the word get out that we got the scholarships, and we got a little extra money for more scholarships this year.
Well, it's really important that you say that, because I don't know how many times I get hit up and say, Uncle Larry, or they say, Larry, do you know where we can have our students apply for scholarships? And I'm like, have you applied for the American GI Forum? And so, we always try to throw at individual students, because this organization really supports our gente. They support La Raza here in Saginaw County, and they have been at the forefront of giving scholarships for so many years. And it's so important because, as you know, higher educational for any parent is very expensive. And so if you want the help, contact the American GI Forum. Have you ever had where you didn't have, any students that did apply?
Before I get to that question, let me just kind of give you a little criteria, because people probably want to know, what does it take and what do you need to receive a scholarship? Well, first of all, you need to be a high school student graduating. You can be in college for second year, third year, but you must live in Saginaw County. Okay, that's a must. And you also must have a Latino Hispanic heritage background of some sort. And I know we live in a world where a lot of us are biracial, but nevertheless, we still look at those applicants. We need school transcripts, because that tells us what kind of student that individual is in terms of grades, the types of courses he or she has taken while in high school or even in college. We ask for a personal essay. What are your goals? What are you thinking about in terms of the future? Tell us, write it down on paper and tell us what you want to do. What I like to just mention is that a lot of them say, I want to give back to the community. And it's good to hear that, because when they do graduate, do get a job, we do like to see new faces in our community doing things within our community. This year, we have a deadline date of we're looking at June the 10th. We either are asking, please get them into us. It must be postmarked before then. And of course, you mail it to the American GI Forum of Saginaw in care of the Scholarship Committee, P.O. Box 4122, Saginaw, Michigan 48606. And it has a phone number also, and that's Mike Guzman's phone number, which is 989-737-6188, or an email, and that would be my email, sergilberto@yahoo.com. So I'm telling students, parents, don't hesitate. Take advantage of this. Our scholarships range from $500, $750, and $1,000. And again, it's based on the GPAs. It's based on their curriculum, their extracurricular activities in school, community service. We look at all these things because we have young people, believe it or not, they're pretty well rounded as far as growing up and being involved with their parents, being involved in the communities. That's a good thing for us.
Well, it sounds like that's a lot, but it really isn't.
No.
And they will guide you through the process, especially the American GI Forum Women's Chapter, and they really help in there. But do you see why we call him Sir Gilberto Guevara? He is very good at explaining things, and we are happy that we're having him here tonight to explain all this, because if you got a kid out there that needs an educational scholarship for higher education, contact the GI Forum now, because come June they're going to be giving out these scholarships. So we're going to go into commercial real quick, but we're going to talk when we come back about the Cesar E. Chavez luncheon that's coming up this Friday here in Saginaw County. We get a whole bunch of people coming to that every year, so I'm kind of excited because I'm going to be there too this year, and we're going to take some great pictures, and we're going to promote this organization the way it should be. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Mi Gente on Air. Boy, that went really fast. That's the first half of the show, but the gentleman did great job explaining, and I really want people to get a sense of what the American GI Forum is and how important it is to our community. Mi Gente, La Raza, this organization, the American GI Forum, so long ago was set up by Dr. Hector Garcia because of an injustice that happened to a Mexican veteran. And how many times do we know, so many times, that there are injustices in the world, and we as a community need to support the organizations that are fighting back and have been fighting back for many, many years. So I hope that, people take the time to really listen to this show. We're going to be live streaming this tonight, but you can hear it throughout, on Facebook, on the different platforms, whether it's Larry Rodarte, my personal page, or whether it's WSGW, whether it's Latinos United in Saginaw. I think there's about 3 or 4 other ones. And it's really important that you also educate your youth in regard to this, because, they have these scholarships, and it's so important in higher ed that these kids apply and that they do the steps necessary in order to receive a scholarship. So we're going to go back into the show. We're going to talk more with Miguel Guzman and Sir Gilberto Guevara, and we're going to talk about the Cesar E. Chavez and what it means to this organization as well.
This is Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back. Good evening, Mi Gente. Thank you for being with me here tonight. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and it is a pleasure, I should say, that I have the American GI Forum members here, the Commander-in-Chief, Miguel Guzman, as well as Sir Gilberto Guevara. Everybody knows him for so many years. He was the first Hispanic councilman that was on the city council way back. What was it, in the 70s or 80s, Gil?
Actually, it was the Board of Education.
Board of Ed. I always get that mixed up, don't I?
1978.
1978. Wow.
1978, yeah.
Wow. Well, I just want to make sure that everybody knows, and I'm talking about not just my Latino listeners, but the non-Latino listeners that are out there, that the American GI Forum Saginaw chapter exists here in Saginaw County. And many of you may have heard that they put on this phenomenal luncheon every year, and it's almost been 20 years now that they've had the Cesar E. Chavez luncheon in honor of the late Cesar E. Chavez, the labor union, the farm worker union member who's along with Dolores Huerta, made great changes here in the United States on how migrant workers were treated in the fields by the farmers. And there's a long story and beautiful story in regards to Bobby Kennedy being involved with that as well. And that's why I'm glad we had the picture that we did with Ali Suniga and Bobby Kennedy on there. But tell me a little bit about this important lunch. Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about it? That's happening this Friday, which is March the 28th. 8th, I believe.
Yes, it's happening it starts at 11:30, and it's going to continue to probably about 2:30. But this is our 19th annual Cesar Chavez luncheon. Um, we're gonna a dynamic speaker, which is Sheriff Christopher Swanson from Genesee County. He's a dynamic speaker. I'm really proud to have him there. And we also got Daniel Soto from um, uh, 85 local 85 union, and he's really a good master master of ceremonies, and he could really he could get the word out pretty good. He's dynamic, so we had him last year, we brought him back this year.
All right, all right. And so, if anybody wants to get tickets, how will they do that, and where are we at in terms of capacity today?
Okay, I mentioned earlier, Larry, that you can call Miguel Guzman at 989 737 6188, or you can email me, sergilberto@yahoo.com. The day of the luncheon, we will also have some scholarship applications available, so they could pick them up there as well. Like I said, the deadline date would be June the 10th. They have to be turned in. They have to be postmarked, Larry, because we get too many people sometimes that hand deliver it to certain people or certain members, and then we don't get them on time. So we require that it be postmarked at least on or before the 10th of June.
So tell me, this here, the 19th year, I've attended a few of them through the years, but tell me why Cesar E. Chavez is so important to the American GI Forum and why you have this luncheon every year annually.
I think it's pretty relevant to say that Cesar Chavez not only was a labor leader, but he also inspired people to continue their education. And along with Dolores Huerta, as you mentioned, they inspired people to continue their education. When they were in the fields, the grapes or whatever in California, yes, they were trying to unionize, and they did do that. They unionized all the workers, all the grape workers, the lettuce, all those folks. But, the battle was, how do we do this? A lot of these folks were not educated. They were farm workers. They were people that were basically coming either from Mexico that settled into California. And he believed that not only that we should get fair wages, that we should have conditions that are acceptable to a human being, that there be fresh water, there be toilets and things of that nature. And see, this kind of education by him going throughout the country, bringing in Bobby Kennedy, bringing in Jesse Jackson, bringing in Emilio, I can't think of his last name.
Estevez.
There you go, from one of the Hollywood stars,
Yeah.
and but throughout his lifetime, his kids got educated. Dolores Huerta's kids got educated, and they've just felt that that's part of who we are. We need to have our children continue their education and, somewhat get away from farm work. But, that's something that it's not so much embedded in our life, but still, when people come to the United States, they'll take any job that's open and that pays money. And usually those jobs are low wage jobs. They're jobs that people don't want to, take. And farm work, if you ever been on a farm under the sun, back bend over and working 8 to 10 hours, I mean, that's very tough work. I've had that experience picking potatoes. I've had that experience picking pickles, and also I had that experience picking cherries. So I at least have a little handle on what they're going through. But I didn't live my life that way simply because my parents said, "No, you're going to get educated. Your dad's working for General Motors, and we're going to help you get educated." Mom was very strong in education. I didn't mean it just to say that she was just a housewife. She made sure that we got educated. She made sure that my dad had her son get skilled trades. And see, those kinds of things take education. This is what they pushed. This is what Cesar Chavez was pushing, not just only being field workers and having union prevailing wage, but he was saying, no, we got to go beyond that. I think that's an effort that the American GI Forum does stand on is our education, because our slogan speaks to that.
Well, I misspoke. I think I said March 28th was Friday, but it's actually March 29th.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to clear that up for anybody. This Friday, March 29th, on Bagley Hall, Bagley loco. What loco is that?
699.
699. They will have the Cesar E. Chavez luncheon with the American GI Forum. And also, where does the funding actually come for these scholarships? Because I know that you guys throw dances and you have this Cesar E. Chavez luncheon. Is that where the funds come? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. We get sponsors for. We got a booklet. You showed the booklet just a little
Mhm.
while ago, and we get sponsors from our businesses here in Saginaw, and they're great. I like to thank them all, because without them, we wouldn't get this money for the scholarships. And we also have a ticket for $35 for the luncheon, which is actually a donation for the luncheon, and that goes towards a scholarship too. We've been doing pretty good with it. We don't get a whole lot of money, but we try to diverse it all to all the recipients we have.
Well, Mike, I know that your family has worked diligently and hard these last couple of years, and I think kind of have given back because your son was a recipient of one of the scholarships, right? Tell us about what he's doing. I know he's not in the area, but he's in the Chicago area.
He's in Minnesota. Area.
Minnesota. Tell us about what he's doing.
Yes, he received. Matter of fact, he received a scholarship from Gilbert Guevara here when he was the commander there, and actually, my wife had to receive it for him because he was a exchange student in England his last year. That's what he did, and which was good for him because he had that mentality for getting around European country. So when he was going to Michigan State University, he got his master's degree, and he was doing internship for 3M in Minnesota, and that's where the main office is at. And he worked up the ladder, and recently he was doing doing all the Latin American countries. He was a director for them, and he ended up pursued his education and got a master's degree. And I asked him about him doing getting his doctorate degree, and he says no. He said I'll be overqualified, so he didn't go. He didn't proceed for the doctor's degree, but now he's still working for him. But he's working the insurance part now. He just transferred over. He's got 28 years now. I got 3 beautiful grandkids from him. We go down there and visit him regularly, and but he's doing really good.
Wow, that's awesome to hear that, somebody who has received a scholarship from you guys, the American GI Forum, is doing so well. And I know you're very proud of him. I want to make a mention here from Angela Blanco. She's one of the women in the chat rooms here. And she says, greetings, gentlemen. Thank you for your service then, now, and all that you continue to do for our community. Your friends at La Unión Cívica will be joining along with our Reina, Gabriela Diaz, at the Cesar Chavez Luncheon. God bless. So Cesar Chavez Luncheon this Friday, March 29th, and the Unión Cívica Mexicana Queen will be in attendance as well. So isn't that awesome that we are collaborating as organizations for this community for the betterment of our Latino raza here in Saginaw County and the Great Lakes Bay region. So thank you for that comment, Miss Angela Blanco. I want to ask you a little bit about, do you have any idea, like, how many of the chapters are there throughout the United States now of the American GI Forum? Because way back, almost 50 years ago, there was at least 18 chapters. Has that subsided in any way, or has it grown? Where are we with that?
Mike and I and our wives and Joaquin Diaz and Cruz, and we went to the national convention in Dodge City, Kansas this past year. And we wondered the same thing. How many chapters are in the United States? And for us to find out, we went to this conference, and we learned that right now, as far as I know, there's 39 chapters throughout the United States.
Wow.
They're not getting the kind of support, in my opinion, uh, in regards to the American GI Forum. Uh, when we spoke to our commander, a national commander, he says that's one of the jobs that we have to do as a national organization is to encourage more cities, more veterans organizations or veterans out there to join and to create chapters because we need to create more chapters in the United States. I'm not sure how many there were at one time, but I know there was quite a few of them. Uh, when I was in Washington D.C. with all the state commanders, I think there was about 25 of us, but that wasn't all the chapters in the United States. It's just those state commanders that were able to go. So, but the number is stable. But our new national commander, David Rodriguez, I believe
Rodriguez,
it is,
yes.
he's from California. He's really pushing to create more chapters throughout the United States and to bring a chapter back that was once in Puerto Rico and to continue to fight for the rights of the veterans, not only civil rights, but education, social economic status. Now more so, even now, more immigration situations have come up with the GI Forum. And that's another thing that we're looking at. It's a new venture for us, but as we seen nationally, all the immigrants that are at our border and crossing, something has to be done. And this is one thing that we're taking a look at, especially in California and Texas.
Well, I want to make sure that we do take a moment to say that it's important that if there's any young veterans out there that may be able to join this organization, would be very helpful. And that's across the board for most of our civic organizations today. We need the young people to step up. We welcome them wholeheartedly. Sometimes it may be difficult as a young person to think, wow, I want to be in an organization, with older members are all, that's the same thing with the Union Cívica Mexicana. But it's important that they, understand that this is how these organizations live and they continue on in our community. And they're providing some great services. The Union Civica is putting on the big Cinco de Mayo celebration. I'm going to take a moment just to say that real quick. The 45th annual that's happening on May 3rd with Elida and Ivante as our headliners. So get ready for that. But this Friday, March 29th, is the Cesar E. Chavez Luncheon by the American GI Forum, which is so, so important. And I want to take the time also to recognize the idea that Hector Garcia, we talk about that gentleman so much. It's important that we learn about him even in the schools because he has put forth, this viable organization that is happening throughout 39 chapters in the United States. And it's helping with civil rights issues as well as educational attainment for our kids. And so, here we've got a strong, viable chapter here in Saginaw with Miguel Guzman and Gilbert Guevara here, as well as Lupe Guevara, who's the president of the women's chapter, and as well as Mike's wife as well. It's so important. And I also want to mention, the families that have been involved before, from the Sunigas, Ali and Tom Suniga, as well as Joe Contreras and his wife, Lupe. And, their daughter, Gloria Cruz, has been very active through the years. And things change, now and then, from now and then or whatever. But I have a picture, Jonathan, that I wanted to show of the chapter when they were actually recruiting members, and it's one of the long poster ones. Yeah, there we go. And I just you see Dr. Hector Garcia in the left-hand corner there, but you also see, a number of the individuals through the years that were a part of the organization. It's a beautiful picture, but you have, Ida Rocha in there, and Gloria Cruz, and Ali Suniga, and there's a number of individuals who were very instrumental in keeping this organization alive in our community. I also want to bring out the fact, because we're running out of time here, but Val Blanco, she's on here tonight. She says, thank you for always supporting the Civica and leading our Cinco de Mayo parade each year. It's always the veterans, the American GI Forum veterans. It's always such a great feeling to see our gente lead with our American flag. God bless our veterans.
I just want to piggyback on what you said earlier, Larry. We're looking at, and we are continuing to search for veterans that just been honorably discharged to consider joining the American GI Forum. This is men and women, okay? Because we do have a couple of women that are a part of our organization that are veterans. We got Maria Espinosa. She served 13 years in the Navy. That says something about Latino women in the armed forces. We're looking at those ladies. We're looking at young people to join us. Yes, we're an older group of veterans, but still, we want younger veterans to step up, be with us, and continue to help us out because, I don't know how much longer I can do this, but, I'm going to do as much as I can. But so I'm putting out that plea to young veterans that are just been honorably discharged. Please contact us. Please become members of the American GI Forum. Ladies, do the same thing. Lady veterans, remember that 75% of our membership has to be veterans. The other 25% can be non-veterans. So we're looking at both veterans mostly, but if those individuals that feel that they can do something for us with the American GI Forum as non-veterans, we welcome it as well. And just the last caveat to this, Larry, is that if you can show us that you're a veteran honorably discharged, we'll give you that first year free of charge without charging you a fee.
Very nice, very nice. Does the American GI Forum chapter help with veterans that when they come back from the service with civilian life?
The good thing about that is that many of them come back with issues relating their health. And the good thing is because we have a VA here in Saginaw, and we have a number of Latino veterans that work at VA
Yes.
that we are familiar with. And we're going to turn them right to those gentlemen and say, hey, contact so and so. He is there. He's either going to register you. One of the nurses I see is a veteran. He's a Latino veteran. He's my nurse at VA. But there's a number of VA Latinos that work there that we will definitely point to them and say they will be able to help you and, get you the kind of medical service that veterans need when they do get back. May it be physical or psychological, they're there for the American veteran and also for the Latinos that do work there.
And that's the Alita Lutz Veterans
That's correct.
Memorial Hospital over on Weiss. They do a great job, great job. Mike, do you have any other idea in regards to, the students that say have been awarded scholarships in the last couple of years? Any that come to mind that, are doing some great things in the community?
So far, like he was talking about, a student was Elvis Mackel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Elvis Mackel Jr.
Yeah, he plays basketball for Saginaw Valley University of Saginaw Valley here, Saginaw. He's one good example of the kids out there that we like to help. He got 2 scholarships from us, and we're there to help all the students we can. So just come out and put an application in. They're going to be out, and right after the Cesar Chavez luncheon, we're going to give them out already because I think we got them all printed up already. Don't we go? Yeah.
And he was valedictorian of Arthur Hill, and there was another individual that was with him that we had on the show. I think he was I can't remember his name offhand right now, but they also were on the cover of Mi Gente magazine. But I think that's what you were referring to when you said the valedictorian and salutatorian that received the educational scholarships from the American GI Forum. So that's wonderful to hear and to know. Definitely.
I just want to also piggyback on that, Larry, is that I got a letter about 5 years ago from Matthew Lucio, and his grandfather is Toby Lucio, and his mom and dad had sent both boys to college. They were graduates from Swan Valley, and they went on to Michigan State. And I got a letter 5 years ago from Matthews, and believe it or not, both brothers, even though they're 4 years apart, received and have a PhD. And we, as American GI Forum, kind of kicked their education off by giving them $1,000 scholarships to both boys back. I'd say this back in the probably early 2000s. And but getting that letter from one of them, and having PhD at the end of it, that only tells us, and this should tell this community that, our kids are really intelligent enough to, go on and further their education and receive those kinds of degrees. And we have to be proud of that. Even though they're not in Michigan anymore, they're working in their respective fields. But still, when you can get that kind of feedback from a recipient just thanking us for that $1,000 to kick off his education, that means something to us as an organization.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. Why Sheriff Chris Swanson out of Flint? Tell me why you chose him this year, and he's going to be speaking as the keynote speaker Friday, March 29th at the Cesar E. Chavez Luncheon.
Well, I was down at the UAW retirement down in Black Lake. They had a conference, and he spoke there. And I'll tell you, he's not going to let you fall asleep. He just had everybody awake. Even my wife said, "You gotta talk to him. You gotta grab him." So I approached him, and he was right away. He said Bobby Kennedy was his idol. So
He
said,
did?
yep, he did.
Bobby Kennedy's my idol. Really?
Yeah,
Seriously?
really, yep. And he says, "Yeah, I'll do it." Then when I contacted him to make sure he could get us on his schedule, he asked me. He told me, he said, "You want me to do it?" I said, "Yeah." Well, then I asked him, "Well, what are we gonna have to pay you? How much you charge?" He says, "Hey, I don't charge nobody." He says, "Brother," he said, "I'm gonna do it for you." He says, "That's what I do." And I told him, "Thanks." I says, and I couldn't turn that down.
Yeah, well, that really speaks to his character, and he's done some, amazing work in what he's involved in. But he's really, an orator, if you will, who speaks really well and gets the crowd going. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we're going to see everybody who is out there. The American GI Forum is hosting the Cesar E. Chavez Luncheon over at Local 699 on Bagley Street in Saginaw County. And we want to encourage everybody who hasn't got tickets to there's still tickets available and to attend, because this is an important civic organization in our community. The American GI Forum has been here in the Saginaw County area since 1958. I misspoke earlier. I said 1966, but it's actually been 66 years that this organization has been in existence. So bravo to them, bravo to the organization. And we just want to thank Miguel Guzman, the commander, as well as Sir Gilberto Guevara for being here on Mi Gente on Air tonight with me to talk about the American GI Forum. We'll see you next week, and we'll continue on in this thing we call life with our Latinos contributing and our culture and our concerns. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next week. Adios. So Gil's saying it's a wrap, but it actually isn't. We're still on the live stream here, and we just want to thank everybody that joined us in the group tonight. Melissa Jones is out there, I think, in Grand Rapids. She's trying to get her father, Johnny Estrada, to be listening tonight as well. And we're just so happy that there's really good vibes with the American GI Forum as well as with Unión Cívica Mexicana, because we really need to work together. We hosted a meeting there last summer, I remember, and we had Jeff Weaver. He was kind of instrumental in that. I know he's a part of your organization, and it's just important, that we really work together for the benefit of Latinos in our community. That's why we're here. That's why we have these organizations. It's not for any glory or for anybody's glorification. It's for the helping of the community, and that's what I think both organizations here are doing, the Unión Cívica as well as the American GI Forum. And gentlemen, I just want to extend the collaboration for those organizations to work very close together in the upcoming years, because we're all getting older, right? And we got to help each other. That's so right. If you need somebody to come over and help with anything, I'm going to send all of our women. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you again. Any last words from you guys?
Well, we are supportive of a lot of community organizations, especially the Unión Cívica, who allows us to lead the parade for the Cinco de Mayo.
And we're so glad. We're so awesome.
We're going to do it again this year, Larry. But I think what I want to do, Larry, is invite all veterans to be a part of that flag and lead that parade. It doesn't matter what branch you don't. And I'm saying all veterans. I'm not just saying GI Forum members, but I'm saying all veterans. Please come. Please participate. Wear your whatever branch you served at the time, and just be with us and lead this parade, just to show our community that we are veteran strong here in the city of Saginaw.
Yeah, and I love that when in the parade, when the veterans and the American GI Forum chapter of Saginaw leads the parade, you get everybody standing and clapping for you guys. I love seeing that because they show the
Right.
respect, the patriotism that they have for our flag and our country. So thank you so much, gentlemen. All right, Mike, anything else?
No, that's basically it. Gilbert covered it all right there. But just get out there, May 5th, May 3rd, this year, and we'll be out there waiting for you, and have a good day out there with us.
Say hi to Janie.
Yep. Yeah, well,
Janie Guzman. She's also part of the women's chapter, of course, and Guadalupe Guevara. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for being with us here on Mi Gente on Air.